Hey, everybody. Welcome to the special edition Matrix Money Podcast. Appreciate everybody being here. FF, how you doing, bro?
Doing well, doing well. I'm very excited for this interview. I have a couple questions ready. Not too many questions, but a couple. So hopefully I get some answers. And yeah, I'm totally excited for this one. So
Yeah, me as well. I am as well. I was fortunate enough to be able to have an interview with Joel already on my channel, and I'll tell you what, I look forward to having this conversation with them. And again, the group that hopefully we'll have in the live chat will be having a completely different perspective than I did in my interview. So listen, I want to welcome him on, and guys, if you want to ask questions, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to those. Okay. By the way, for those who are expecting Jar to chime in here, that he may, but he had a family emergency, so family first. He's taking care of business, and so you got myself and FF today holding down the fort.
sorry, guys, Jar's not here, basically.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So excellent. We've got some people chiming in here. I appreciate you guys joining in already. Awesome. Like I said, feel free, get your questions in the chat, and we'll go from there. All right. Without any further ado, let's welcome Joel Valenzuela to our live stream here. This gentleman has been, I mean, if you are on crypto Twitter, you've seen him everywhere lately. This guy is on every Twitter space, every interview. I can't even imagine how he keeps up with his schedule. Not to mention working with Dash, and I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm not going to go into the background with regard to Dash right now. But welcome, sir. Appreciate having you here and taking time out of your day. Appreciate it.
Yeah, hey guys. Good to be here. Definitely always happy to chat. You know me.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you what. While people are starting to chime in the chat, why don't you tell our family here that's watching a little bit about you?
Yeah, so my name is Joel, and I've been involved in crypto for quite a long time. I think I first got into crypto somewhere in 2012. I started using it in 2013, and in 2015 is when I stopped getting paid in fiat currency and was only being paid in crypto from 2015 on till today. And so I've basically been a user, educator, advocate for a long time. Currently working full time for Dash, which is coincidentally for many years also the crypto project I've used the most in actual payments and to do for most of my real money purposes. And so it's been really fun being able to actually finally like work full time again in something that I've honestly used for a very long time.
Excellent. I know, seeing you work for Dash, why don't you tell us a little bit, and that's what you use primarily. Tell us a little bit about Dash itself for those who may not be familiar.
Yeah, so Dash is a cryptocurrency. It's been around since 2014, just had a 10-year anniversary. So, one of the OG coins. And Dash, the word Dash is a portmanteau of digital cash. And it's basically trying to be the best form of actual cash, digital cash, money, payments, etc. It started off originally in 2014 as Darkcoin, is kind of the first major cryptocurrency to have a functionality to improve end user privacy, and since then has kind of evolved to focus more specifically just on the digital payments aspect, not neglecting any of the privacy, but just rounding out the picture and making it less of a one-trick pony and more of something that's really usable for payments and has high security, etc. And it's also one of those things where it ends up it's the longest running DAO, or decentralized autonomous organization. There's there's always arguments about who started the first DAO, and it's hard to tell, but definitely Dash is the oldest one that's still around today. There might have been BitShares, I don't know, back in the day, and so that's exactly how I work for Dash is by participating in the DAO. And so even though it's a decentralized network, you can have people actually get paid from the network and work for it and things like that.
Right. Well, I mean that you got to be able to do some form of marketing and that kind of thing in order to kind of get the word out there. So you need people, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
And that's kind of I know I'm dominating here. FF, you feel free to chime in. I know you got questions lined up there, brother.
Yeah.
Don't let me
I just want to make sure I ask my questions in a way that makes this whole thing flow as well. So
okay. Did you want to chime in? If not, I'm gonna.
No, nothing to chime in. I think
okay.
The overview of Dash is great. I mean, obviously Joel knows a lot about it because one, he's been in it for a long time, and then two, he also works for Dash. So
right.
I mean, everything. I have no issues with what he said at all.
Well, one of the things he touched on, and Joel, please feel free to expound on this a little bit, was talking about educating people. How you trying to educate people about the space, and you and I talked about this before. It's definitely something that I think is lacking here. The overall education. I mean, yeah, everybody knows a little bit about this coin or Bitcoin or whatever the case may be, but like the overall education, and especially when it comes to like using cryptocurrency like you do. Would you like to expand a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things of endless possibilities, and when you have something radically new like crypto and blockchain technology, it's not just like, oh, I invented a new application for a computer, or I did a new thing here. It's I invented a new, entirely new data structure that can be used in decentralized ways for all kinds of things. And in the beginning of it, obviously takes a ton of time to build something to compete with the modern financial system, do all the integrations, etc. And I think that it's kind of like there's a reason why the vast majority of crypto is speculation right now. It's because people don't really know what it's useful for. They don't really know what it's going to be used for, and they're just trying to find that out. It's kind of like price discovery mode. And I think that like Bitcoin started out as the money coin, is first off the first of them, but it's honestly one of the easiest kinds of applications if you think about it. Is you is it just an accounting system of send this amount to from this to that. It's like the most easy operation in the world, a simple, streamlined operation. And so obviously that would be the first one. Other more complicated things came later. The thing is, at some point, around about 2015, 16, 17, right in that window there, Bitcoin decided to pivot away from being useful for everyday payments and to just focus on extreme conservatism with development to avoid upsetting the, I guess, store of value or decentralized or censorship resistant store of value kind of part of things. And so after that, the actual usage as money, the original purpose, kind of just, it's still around, but sort of floated away. I mean, obviously with Bitcoin, it became a little bit of a thing of, well, let's see if we wait for second layer solutions like the Lightning Network to be ready to use it.
Right.
Or a lot of it was, let's not even do that. Let's just use it for this. And a lot of the rest of the space has been historically looking for the next thing, where like Ethereum innovated with a whole lot of smart contracts, things like that. Things like Solana today are trying to be Ethereum killers. They're competing for that market space. Right. And then you have NFTs. Even Bitcoin's becoming a little bit of an NFT platform these days with ordinals and all kinds of things. People keep going, but they are not coming back around to money and payments, which is what everything started at. And there's quite a few cryptocurrencies that are focused on money and payments. Obviously, Dash is quite streamlined in this regard, but Bitcoin Cash does this too. Litecoin, more or less. Then you got some more privacy-focused ones like Monero and Zcash. And then, you got Firo, eCash, Nano. You got a bunch that are in that kind of competition. But as a segment of the market cap, it's relatively small. And I think that this is personally, I think that this is a temporarily missed opportunity. I do think that soon, like over the next few years, people are going to start to want to use this payments use case. And I think that there will be obviously winners and losers, but I definitely think that that segment of the space is going to become very important in the future. I mean, think about payment companies and just the giant industry that they are in the fiat currency realm. And just think about if you can port that to crypto, how much money is able to be earned from that. It's just a very tricky thing to do. It's much easier to make cat pictures on the blockchain. That's a lot of an easier kind of a problem to solve because people just buy them and that's it. The payments architecture is very complicated.
Yeah, you're obviously not wrong. And how many of these 6,000 plus, I don't even know if that's probably a low figure now, cryptocurrencies that are on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap claim to be faster this, better that, or whatever. But I guess the proof, as they say, is in the proverbial pudding. So I because you and I have been kind of communicating on the back end, that I've started a Living on Crypto series, and I've started with using Dash because after our interview, that's kind of the way it seemed it would be the right way to start out and best for some people. And I'll tell you what, I didn't realize until I was doing that first video that I could even go within the Dash app to find stuff that was local. I mean, that in and of itself, being into the Dash wallet itself, that's like huge. Because when you and I were talking, we were talking about stuff like bit refill, and I know I'm getting a little ahead here. I'm getting a little ahead, but when you're talking about that kind of integration, having that ability inside, like I said, the Dash wallet, I think that's a humongous thing. I mean, is that where, like, for example, Dash is focusing right now? That kind of integration?
Yeah, for sure. So it's one of those, when you think about what are the reasons why a lot of cryptos have not fared super well long term is because a blockchain is almost like a natural resource, like you're discovering electricity or something like that. It's a very base level infrastructure kind of thing. It's not ready for a person to use it. You can't just use it. You need a lot of things built on top of it. And
Right.
so that's, for example, not to, probably last time I'll bring up Solana here, but that's one of the reasons why I think Solana's done pretty well these days is the relative centralization of the ecosystem or of the development, et cetera, where it's like a company that can just decide to build from the roots all the way to the end user product and just make sure that whole experience is smooth. And of course, there's a lot of disadvantages with that sort of approach. But I guess the point is, at some point, you need products for users. You need something that the end user is going to use. And they're not just going to be like, okay, I'm going to run a core daemon and sync this blockchain to the node here and then type some RPC commands for, like, that's infrastructure. No one's going to use infrastructure for their coffee. They're going to actually use like an app. And so one thing that Dash has that not a lot of decentralized cryptos have is a very focused sort of product focus, where especially the mobile wallets are considered as products and they're built to be end user products. And so there's so many Dash wallets out there, right? I mean, Exodus is a great one. I really love Edge. I'm really close with the Edge team. I love those guys. And then you get to freaking Thor wallet is amazing. I love Thor wallet. And then there's just like you add all these kinds of, there's so many wallets out there that support Dash, but the official Dash wallet is in the one that's being paid by the DAO to be developed. In my opinion, is one of the smoothest experiences out there. And part of that is, of course, as you mentioned, you can find local ATMs local to you in the wallet itself. Also merchants that we know of that have accepted Dash that are close to you, and you can kind of all do that. You can buy with a credit card right in the app itself. There's a few other features that are on their way very soon. There should be a spending feature in the app that kind of reminiscent of Bit Refill that hopefully will happen relatively soon. And so, I mean, it's still not released, but it's close enough that I can probably mention that. And then there's a few other features that I'll have to just be quiet about until they come out.
Yeah, you can't be blowing anything up there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Now, I have another question. I know I just don't shut up with questions, but I have another question, but I'd like to actually ask you to address a question that one of the people in the chat asked, because it'll lead into my question.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, as far as payment cases, use cases, how does it compare with Litecoin as far as speed, reliability, and mainstream adoption?
Yeah, so that's a good question, especially since I would personally call Litecoin one of the closer competitors, at least as far as like market share, where what Litecoin is doing, where it is today, is kind of what we're looking at as, a target of like, oh, we'd like to be used in all these places. But yeah, Litecoin is great. You know, I have nothing bad really to say about Litecoin. The thing is, Litecoin does not have an explicit instant transaction functionality. So what happens when you send a crypto transaction is you send it out, all the nodes on the network see it, and then they put it in it's what they call the mempool. Again, I'm being both technical and and
It's
not technical
okay.
at the same time.
The
Yeah,
people who are
so
here will understand what you're talking about. Go for it.
yeah, so in the recipient will just transactions up there somewhere, but it's not for sure. And then when it gets actually included in a block, which come every 2.5 minutes for both Litecoin and Dash, then that's when you could traditionally call it confirmed. Again, this is the old Bitcoin way of doing things that then, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, all these other ones have the same basic structure. But Dash has another special instant transaction functionality, which basically makes it completely settled in about 1 or 2 seconds. So obviously, when you come to like if you're making a payment online of like you're paying your rent and you just click send and then it's like, all right, a few minutes until you could tell if it's done. Maybe that's annoying, but it's not too bad
Right.
versus instant. But if you're at a coffee shop, I mean, it might be something that it would be fun to actually play a little game to visualize. You go like, all right, let's pay. And then every single second makes another bead of sweat come down your face as there's a line behind you. You're waiting for it to be done. They're not going to be like, all right, well, go sit down and we'll tell you when it's confirmed. And then you're just sitting waiting. And then they're like,
Right.
I'm sorry it didn't go through. Like that's a nightmare. You want it to be done instantly. And
Right.
so as far as I know, there's nothing on the horizon or something for Litecoin to be super like finalized instantly. And it's something that, again, if you're really serious about payments, this is something you need to have, in my opinion. That's why, eCash is another relatively recent crypto competitor that also just got an instant transaction functionality because they're serious about that. Nano, that's a huge thing that they focus on. And so, yeah, instant payments. It's got to be done instantly. You got to be able to respend it instantly too. So like if I sent one of you guys some Dash and 3 seconds later you sent it to pay for a merchant, something at a merchant, it would all just be done instantly. You don't have to worry about wait for it to confirm the first time and then okay, now we can send it and then there's more. And those kinds of things are like they're technical things, but for an end user, the end user, it's kind of like a binary thing where did it work or did it not work? And as soon as something kind of doesn't work or they have to wait for something, it falls in the category of doesn't work and then they don't want to touch it again. So that's kind of the point of this, is to try to make sure everything just works all the time. So you just never have to explain. You never have to have friction. You never have to have, unsatisfied users and so on.
And you bring up a good point with the way you say it's just going to work. Yeah, go ahead, FF.
Yeah, I figured I'd raise my hand now. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I
we can
hear
hear
you
you.
great.
Okay, great. Because I had to fix the mic. So in regards to settling quickly, I think that also has its security purpose as well. And you might already know where I'm going with this one, but with the Bitcoin Lightning Network, there was a replacement cycling attack that basically involves the mempool and replacing essentially a transaction there. So when you're able to just avoid that entirely, right, then you have that security aspect as well, just being able to settle quickly. So I think that to me, just from a technical standpoint, is great. And I didn't know that about Dash. It's not that I haven't used Dash before. I'm learning. as well as everybody else. I mean, I guess my Dash history was I mined Dash back in like 2017 using what is they called again? Genesis Mining. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. The cloud mining company that horrible, but
one of my old business partners had a contract with them, and he complained about that.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much bad about them right now, but that's where I got my start with Dash. So I've used the wallets before. I'm with you with everything, but when you had brought up the instant settle, I think that is awesome, and I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot it. That you know, it has that security.
Because you mentioned 2017, it might be good for a fun little slight deep dive on that and a history lesson a little bit, because back in 2014, I believe, is when the instant transaction feature was developed, but it was an optional feature. Some wallets had to check a little box: do you want to use the instant send? And it would charge a 10 times fee. So if it's like a fraction, if it's like a half a cent, or fraction of a cent, then it'd be 10 times that or whatever. That's how it originally worked. And how it would work is the outputs of the transaction would be locked by this second layer of nodes called the masternode network, which would just prevent them from being spent anywhere else. Now, where it had some issues, where some user experience issues, other than just you had to have a wallet that supported it, is the funds were locked. So if I sent you an instant send transaction, it would be final on your end immediately. But then if you wanted to send it on to FF, you'd have to wait for a few blocks before you'd send it. So there was that clunky thing. And then also, because of the way coins, UTXO coins as they're called, like Bitcoin and etc., work, is you don't just have a balance at your address, you have actual coins. So if I have 5 Dash and I send you 1, I send you 5 and get 4 back, change, like with cash when you make change and you get it back. And so if I had instant sent you a transaction of 5 Dash, my change would be frozen for a few blocks too, and then I couldn't send it. So what has happened, I believe in 2019, there was a new, as they call LLMQ based instant send functionality, which basically uses an entirely new way of aggregating signatures, but basically made it, first of all, waived the extra fee, and then made it default automatic for every single transaction. So the user didn't have to be, I want this one to be fast. Like, no, it's all fast. And then also had a way where a functionality where you have chained instant send. So you can actually respend it many, many times over. I think up to 24 times or something, but it never gets anywhere near that before you actually get confirmed in a block. So I could send it to you, bounce it 24 hops along, and then you're all good. And so that's something that, like, a lot of people remember the 2017 like hype bubble, and they don't really pay attention to what happened after that, but there have been some considerable improvements since then. Another one is something called chain locks, which is a anti 51% attack thing, which basically uses the masternode network to as a second layer of security in case you have like a mining attack. And so basically it's one of the most difficult chains to attack today, because with other networks, like for example a Bitcoin clone, for example, you'd have to get a majority of the mining power, then you could kind of stop transactions for the period of time that you do it. I mean, there's a bunch of nuance to that, but basically that's how that works. And then if you have a fully staked network, it's much harder to attack, but there's always little ways you could disrupt some nodes or things like that. That's can get highly technical there, but Dash has both. So basically you have to somehow get the majority of the mining power, and then you'd also have to disrupt this whole staked network too. And so it just kind of adds to that, never have to worry about if the payment's going to go through or not. It's just, you send it, it's done, never have to worry about it, don't have to worry about a thing.
Nice. Didn't know that. But the more I'm learning, the better in regards to Dash. So awesome.
Just because we're talking about security, we have one other question that came in with regard to here. App wallets are vulnerable to different attacks. Are you on any hardware wallets?
Yeah, Ledger, Trezor, and Keep Key, obviously like the three big OG ones, and then I'm sure a bunch of other ones, but it's not something that like because I use those ones, I don't really have too much knowledge outside of those main ones. There's so many hardware wallets. The problem is
Yeah.
the research into how they're done is like it's a big task to try to figure out, which are the good ones, which ones are secure, which ones aren't. So, but yeah, the answer is yes, it's in all those. And
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. My other question was going to be where we were talking. That first question was, about like Litecoin, how you felt about Litecoin, and so on and so forth. If you were, I know you're working for Dash, but if you were put on the spot by these guys here and asked, okay, if I don't want to use Dash and I wanted to still use something else, what would you suggest?
Stealing my question.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, we could do like a lip sync over that, but yeah. So I mean, a lot of that depends on the region you're in the world, just because of adoption realities. I get it depends on like a tech perspective, because from my understanding, the tech of eCash is very similar to that of Dash. So if you're just talking about tech, maybe I'd go with eCash for like the security and instant transactions and all that kind of good stuff. But I don't know anywhere I can use eCash on the other hand. So as far as actual practical things, I'd probably go for Litecoin in most cases. And as a otherwise, I go Bitcoin Cash, depending on where you are in the world. So, for example, if in the US, most of the services I'd use, Litecoin's probably up there. But then in a lot of Western Europe as well. But if you go to places like St. Kitts, they have a very strong Bitcoin Cash presence there. Same thing with Townsville in Australia. There's some people I know that are living all off of it over there, and some places in Southeast Asia. So probably those would be the top two that would be easiest to use. But then technologically, probably eCash is the closest.
Gotcha. I don't want to steal another question, FF. Jump in.
No. So I guess to follow up with that question, because I do have follow-ups to that question.
Yeah, of course.
What have you been looking into that's not Dash that you think, and feel free not to answer this if this hurts your relationship with Dash, that you've been looking into as a possible replacement to Dash for yourself?
Yeah, and so I mean, this is definitely something I can talk about because it's kind of my whole journey. Is back in 2011, 2012, I was trying to I learned about fiat currency and the gold standard and all this kind of stuff. And as a kid, I grew up in the north of Mexico, and I remember seeing the peso that had just collapsed. They just made the new peso at the time, and like I was very aware of that the fiat was a scam since as early as I can remember. And there was just always this open kind of thing where everyone in certain circles understood that sound money is a thing, it's a real thing, and our money should be sound money, but it's not. It's inflated away, and then there's no next step though. That's it. Just it's the way it is. And so I was always looking at ways of how do I get off of this? How do I change? How do I actually make a difference? And at the time, Peter Schiff, who now is a little bit of a crypto boogeyman kind of a guy, but I have no ill will towards him because he was one of the OGs of sound money. He had a gold-backed debit card at the time, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! I get to just swipey, the same as I always live my life, but this time I only own gold. I'm safe from inflation." I was like, "This is awesome!" But it wasn't available in the US at the time and things like that. And then around that time is when I got into crypto. So I've always been pretty one track. Is I care about financial freedom. I care about freedom as a whole, but as far as money, I want something that no one can inflate or take away from me. No one could confiscate it, and no one can tell me I can't send it to anyone. I just want free money, and freedom money, as I call it these days. It's so Bitcoin was that, and I used it as long as I could. In the end of 2016, it started to get not easy to use, where I had to skip lunch a couple days because I couldn't get a confirmation. I think my last Bitcoin transaction in 2016 was unconfirmed for about 2 weeks. And
Wow.
so, and I paid
Wow.
like $2 or so for that, which is not that high for today, but back then it was high. I paid like $2 and it took a couple weeks, and
Wow.
I had to decide I just got to stop, or I got to stop living on crypto, go ask for my bank account back, all this stuff, or I got to try something else. And so I just went down the list. Let's see, where are we at? We're at Bitcoin, and then the next one is Ethereum. And Ethereum was like, well, that's not really trying to be money. And I'm glad I skipped that, because now Ethereum's fees are almost worse than Bitcoin most days.
Yeah.
And then pretty much Litecoin was in the mix somewhere, but Litecoin has had a resurgence in recent years. Back in the day, it wasn't actively developed at all. It was like a dead project, basically. And then since then, Charlie Lee got it listed on Coinbase because he was the director of engineering there. I wonder how that worked. But the point is, and then there's been a lot of other, there's been a good few years for Litecoin after that, but it was not an option at the time. And it wasn't an option for many years on. Bitcoin Cash didn't exist yet for a whole year, so I couldn't use that. So it's just down the list. What can I use? And so I hit on Dash, and that's just what I started using. And I did work for Dash from 2017 to 2019. And then the last few years, excluding this year, I was just doing my own thing, exploring everything, running a Lightning node, which was, that was fun. I did some work for Zcash. So of all these coins, like the ones I've tried out and tried to use, and I'm fans of, I should say, of all these would be, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Zcash, Monero. I've used the Lightning. Lightning never worked out super well for me, but that's on the map too. And I'm always just looking at I have good relationships with a lot of people in the crypto space. Like Firo is another privacy coin that's gets nowhere near the love that it needs for the innovation that's done. And just all down the list, the eCashes and the Nanos of the world and everything. And for me, I just thought, what can I use today? That's the number one. And then the number two is what can I reasonably trust is going to keep getting better. It's going to keep working out better. And Litecoin is where it kind of lagged in that department for a while until they started to do the Mimblewimble extension block, which I'm a big fan of that. It's the first thing that Litecoin's really done that has not been like Bitcoin testnet. It's been trying to do something unique and different. Yeah. And so, but as far as like security, no second layer security, no instant transactions, and there's no one's trying for instant transactions. Like it's just not on the roadmap at all. And also, Dash has been working on usernames and contact lists and all that kind of stuff at the blockchain level for a long time now. And that's something that really, when I heard this was being worked on, it's one thing that really sealed the deal for me many years ago. And unfortunately, it's taken forever to come out, but hopefully we got something to play with this year. But just like all these things that's like, okay, does this work for me today? That's the number one thing. And then the number two thing is this going to work for me in the future? Is it going to keep on getting better? Is it something I can figure out? And then just like the big knock on Dash so far has just been, like market and price and stuff. It just, if it weren't for that, no one would be saying, well, what about these other things? It would be 100%. And it just, there's a few things I can sort of point to of, I don't understand everything, right? As far as crypto markets and things, there was a big masternode boom in 2017 where Dash was the first coin you get some like recurring income off of. And a lot of people are like, I'm buying masternode, I'm set for life. And it was a lot of that. Now there's so many staking options all over the place. And so that bubble popped. And also a lot of people were talking about this whole evolution thing and about the usernames and all that. And just honestly, that has taken way too long to come out. And you cannot ignore that that's a part of things. And more I'm discovering, and I don't want to throw predecessors under the bus too much, but there's a lot of missed opportunities in business expansion and marketing and things like that we always kind of saw from the outside. But then being on the inside now, I'm starting to see like, oh wow, this wasn't done. Oh, that wasn't done. Oh, no one even reached out to And that's been my job, is like the cleanup crew of all that, trying to start things off on a good foot. But it is kind of crazy to think about just how, like, if you pay attention to the Bitcoin ecosystem, which Bitcoin has a very impressive, I guess I would say, like, all out marketing assault. And I was part of that in the early days, right? When I was just like, this, because this was crypto. The entire awesome innovation that we have, it was all pretty much wrapped up in Bitcoin. Now it's kind of other things too, but back then it was Bitcoin or nothing. And so everyone was pushing this stuff. And even today, you see so many influencers on like Twitter or whatever, just posting AI generated images and talking about, you're going to be rich forever if you do this. And like, there's all this kind of stuff constantly. And also a bunch of companies, like, for example, Strike is doing its very best to make things super easy for the end user, which, I don't envy them having to deal with Lightning to do that, but whatever. There's a lot of companies that are super focused and working hard on this kind of thing. And so I'm hoping to try to emulate a lot of that kind of stuff. Not only push towards products that really work, but also, connect the last dots and actually sell this stuff, actually get it out there, get people to use it. And if it doesn't work, don't gaslight people and say, well, you should know that you need more channel capacity or whatever. Like, no, just tell people the truth the whole way through and, see where that takes us.
Heaven forbid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do kind of have an issue with where the market is going in general, like for crypto, where, just to sort of piggyback off of what you were saying about how, like, it's all about marketing now, how, it's all about price action. And I kind of consider myself an OG in crypto. I only say that just because, like, I first heard about it back in like 2011. And back then, as you probably remember, there were faucets, there were people just giving crypto away just because, right? And, there wasn't this big old thing about price action. There was a little bit with Bitcoin, but everything else was really just, this is this new thing. Like, here, let me show you. Like, and I miss that. I miss that fun aspect of crypto. And that sort of goes to my question for you, Joel, is what do you miss about old crypto that, new crypto is kind of just forgotten? I mean, I can give you an example. Like, people think NFTs are fun, but when you look at NFTs and the way that they're marketed right now, it's all about how can I flip this image instead of actually utilizing the NFT standard to maybe use it as a deed or your license or something useful. So I guess that's my question to you, is like, what do you miss about like old school crypto?
Yeah, I definitely missed the peer-to-peer freedom movement. That's just all it was about.
Yeah.
And I can't be too critical of where things are today. I can be a little bit, of course. It's just a natural, it's the natural progression of things to a certain extent. But the one thing I do miss is back in the early days, the entirety of the space, there was a lot of things that did not need to be said. Like, you did not need to say that this is freedom tech, that you were trying to cut out centralized intermediaries. You're trying to have permissionless finance or other applications, whatever. You have to say that, banks were crooks. You didn't have to say that the government was stealing from you. You didn't have to say that I don't trust those people. It was just understood that, we did not have freedom, and we invented a tech that could give us freedom. And this was what we were about, and that people would fight us. And that was okay, because we were going to win in the end. We were going to find a way to win somehow, because this was more important than anything else in our lifetimes. That camaraderie is something that is still there, but it's not condensed. It used to be everyone in crypto just knew that. Now I have to do some feelers about, like, well, what do you think about this ahead of time?
Exactly.
Otherwise, otherwise it's like, well, I want my money to go up. And it's like, yes, I too am an inflation skeptic, but I also want control. They're like, well, it's okay if I can trust my bank with it, or, I don't care if Cash App holds all my Bitcoin. It's like, and I start losing my shit at that point. But it's unfortunate that like people aren't all on the same page. And you see this, I remember the old school, what one could call maybe a Bitcoin maximalist was someone who was, I guess, sort of like me in the day, because as soon as I found out about other cryptocurrencies, I always was interested, but I just didn't care that much because I was trying to focus on what really worked. This is the financial revolution of the future, Bitcoin only. This is what I'm focused on. Everything else is fun, but it's a sideshow. And unfortunately, the Bitcoin maximalism of today is very different. It's not just, this is the big thing, everything else is a sideshow. It's, this is the only thing, everything else is a scam. And if other things allow people to live free of centralized intermediaries or get rid of their bank account, whatever, it doesn't matter because it's all scam. I just want this because look at the price charts going up. And that part, I guess I miss. Sometimes I have to remind myself, though, that there's more people who are in crypto for the right reasons than there were back in the day. There's very much a smaller percentage of them, but there's more total people, and they're just more spread out. And so I just have to remind myself of that, because otherwise it gets depressing. I gotta sort of keep myself focused on, the mission. And it is easier today than any other day in history to live all without fiat currency. So I can't look at that reality and just be like, oh, too many people talk about price and NFTs and stuff.
It's what everybody talks about it, and I literally just did a live stream this morning about that. It's like that's all. It's NGU, number go up. That's sad truth. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, FF, if you were about that.
No. I was just looking at my questions, and like when you were talking about, the P2P, and then I know it was brought up in the chat by Dash Incubator as well. That's something that's like literally right in my notes. And I say specifically, I miss the P2P, and then I say less of the B2P, which is like the business to people, where it's these airdrops and things like that. And, we had a conversation yesterday with Crypto Jar, and we were talking about airdrops, and like, yes, when it comes to the finance aspect of it, it's great, but I missed the whole P2P element, not some random company or non-company, since they want to try to avoid the Howey test or whatever that they're trying to do, and then dropping me some coin that I'm likely never going to use. So I appreciate your answer there, Joel. I have another question, since we were talking about price action as well. It's sort of just one by one here, so bear with me. But the next question I have is, does downtrend price fluctuations affect your life in general for you? And I know you kind of touched on that, sort of. It wasn't really price action, but it was more so like confirmation speeds with Bitcoin and how that affected your life. But what about the actual price of the crypto itself?
Yeah, so for me, I've had enough flexibility in my life where it hasn't. I just, if you're earning constantly at a certain rate, then like every single month or every 2 weeks or whatever, there's only so much fluctuation that can happen there. It's not catastrophic. So that's mostly been it. I have experimented with some stable coins over the last cycle, and some of it went well. Some of it, I got a little bit of Luna, and that didn't go well, but whatever.
That didn't go well. Yeah.
But on the whole, like, it was a very small exposure. So I can't cry. I know people lost a lot. But the thing is, if anyone who owns a small business of any kind knows that you don't get a constant stream of revenue. Sometimes there's good months, sometimes there's bad months, and you just sort of, you deal with it. You pay everything you can off in the good months, and then the bad months you learn to live lean, etc. There is that kind of ebb and flow to it. But the other thing, and this is more of a, I guess, a US based thing, although I have a feeling a lot of countries have similar structures. If you are living and using it as your money, and you're not like running from the IRS all the time, then you're probably filing, for capital gains and stuff. And where that comes in is, a lot of people are scared of that, but I think it could be an opportunity to do well. And I know some friends who do it this way, where I mean, I basically, if you lose something, then you write that off. So like if you lose a couple grand in fluctuation over a year between realizing the gains, right, or realizing the losses, then you already lost that, but you can just not pay that in taxes now. And for me, that's a win, because I'd rather just lose it to speculation than let those people at the government have it, you know? So for me, I don't care if I lose, as long as, if it's more than 3,000, you can defer it to the next year and things like that. And if I gain, I paid less than half, right, of what I gained. So either way, it's better than if I was just using straight dollars the whole way through and just having the value go down year after year. So I think if you can report those like that, you can actually, do well. I do know some people have done some more gymnastical reporting, where they'll check out, where am I at for profit and loss for this year? Oh, the price is down. I'm going to sell everything I have and buy it back immediately, or, relatively soon or whatever, and lock in a capital loss for this year, even though I was not going to sell anyway or spend anyway, just to do that. There's some people that do that. Or it's like, oh, wow, it's really high. My value is really high. But if I sell it or if I spend it right now, I'm going to lock in a significant capital gain, and I don't want that. So I'm going to take out a collateralized loan on my crypto that lets me then spend that right away, and then later I'll pay that back when it's not as bad. I don't have that thing. There's like a lot of like wizardry people do with their accounting, and like obviously that's not an average consumer. An average user just goes into their wallet and just make sure they mark everything that's an expense, and then they just export the CSV file, give it to their accountant, and then they just do their profit and loss, and that's it. So that's the average person, but there's some other crazy stuff you could do. On a greater note, more than just what do I do or what can one do, it is kind of an interesting technological question about the price volatility. I say it's a tech issue because for some reason the end user product, the gas token, and the investment token in a project are all the same for a lot of these coins, like a Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. And so if you want to, let's just using Bitcoin as the example, right? If you want to invest in the future of Bitcoin, like, I think this is a great project, it's going to do well, you buy Bitcoin. If you want to have stuff on hand to pay to move Bitcoin around, you buy Bitcoin. If you want to use Bitcoin as money, you buy Bitcoin. And so every time you're like, oh, I got like about $100 worth of Bitcoin, I'm going to go buy groceries today. And then some whale dumps a bunch of, he doesn't like, and then all of a sudden the end user's value gets hit. And then, oh, wow, now it costs more to send or whatever. It's those three functions kind of get crossed a whole lot. And so it's kind of an interesting, in the past, you could say that sort of buying mining equipment could have been like the investment type thing, but now it's just I'll buy Bitcoin. I think that also has to do with why Bitcoin is all about just price go up. They've just killed off the other use cases. Just only this because it's simple. It's the easiest thing you can do with crypto is just buy it, and everything else that requires using it is more complicated. So that's where stuff like stable coins comes in. And I don't really like stable coins because I wanted to get away from fiat, but some people just want a more stable value in the interim. So I think that there are some interesting projects. Like one I'm a big fan of is the Maya protocol, which is a fork of Thorchain. It's like one of those cross-chain AMM DEX protocols, which if any of you didn't understand that, don't worry about it. But they have the cacao token is the gas token that they use to like pay for swaps and stuff. But they have a token called the Maya token, which is sort of like an investment token where you get 10% of all swap fees goes to Maya token holders. So it's like, all right, if you want to speculate on the future of the project, just buy those things. And then if you want to pay for swaps, use the other utility token. And then you're swapping existing cryptocurrencies anyway. So that's like the end user product. So it kind of makes it not like all this like one thing, where it's been one of the most frustrating things in the world being like, trying to get people to use, crypto, Dash in particular, but even others. They're like, oh, why would I use that for money? They look at the price chart, and it's a little silly, but there's like a grain of truth in that, which is like, if people keep buying a bunch of this stuff to use, and then it goes down over time, they don't do as well, and then that affects the actual utility, even though the network itself does really well at transmitting this stuff. And so I do think that any crypto payment project worth their salt in the future is going to look into a stablecoin, and maybe even a Bitcoin based stablecoin, so you get to be the network that transmits the Bitcoin, because Bitcoin itself sucks at that.
Yeah, no, that's excellent answer.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you for that
this
detail.
for a while.
You want to CCM Dash Incubator has a question here where they're asking.
I was backed up on questions. I haven't even scrolled down. Where's their question? Is it way at the bottom here?
Well, actually, it looks like Chris has one about U.S. regulations, and then
let's throw that one up here. That's where I stopped, because that was the next question I saw. Any thoughts about this with the U.S. regulations? The U.S. sucks. Let's just be honest. And you see Dash as a target?
Kind of, but honestly, the worst has already happened, right? Because first of all, because of Dash's privacy functionality, which is a coin join, which you can do on any transparent crypto. Dash just has it integrated into the actual network, so it works a lot smoother and better. And so because of that, it got lumped into the privacy coin category, which would I argue it belongs there? I actually don't know. I would say it's not the primary purpose, but it could. But because of that, there's been a few exchanges that have been wary to list Dash or have delisted Dash over the years, and it's not too bad. It's definitely not been the same as something like Monero, which just got delisted from Binance.
Right.
And got a giant, price dump after that, and so that there's been that, and largely it's not a present concern, because it's just more of you have some crypto exchange, then they do a delisting, and then they relist but say please don't talk about it, and so then the price goes down from the relisting, but it doesn't go back up when they relist. It's whatever. I have no concern if Bitcoin and Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash and things like that, if they are street legal, as it were, in most of the world, wherever they're fine, I don't think Dash has any additional problems. Now, the SEC they have had a few different lawsuits, and that the SEC has made a giant mess of things these last few years, and
no argument there.
Yeah, it's to be seen what comes out of it. But they've sued a couple of exchanges, saying that they sold unregistered securities, and they have named Dash as one of these. But the nuance in this situation is, first of all, when they sued Binance, for some reason they didn't mention Dash, even though Dash has been on Binance forever. And so they make it up as it goes along. But very important in the case, and the reason I know this distinction is because some of my friends ran LBRY Library, the blockchain content protocol, and I went to those court hearings with the SEC and watched them get their whole project destroyed on by regulation stuff. But the point is, the SEC was very careful. They were not trying to allege that the library token was a security at all. In fact, they explicitly asked the judge not to rule on that. They just said the company Library Inc. has sold these tokens as an unregistered securities offering. And that's exactly what they're doing with these exchanges. They're not saying that the tokens involved are securities or aren't securities, that they have been sold as such by this exchange. And that's what they're alleging. And these lawsuits haven't even been concluded as far as I know. No. Yeah, one thing's for sure is Dash has not been a party in any of these, whereas the library company at least was a party. Even when it was a direct party, they were being sued directly. The SEC never alleged that the token itself was a security. And so, I mean, Dash is on Coinbase, Dash is on Kraken, Dash is everywhere. I am not at all worried about that. So as an extra target, no, I think the worst has already happened with the FUD surrounding oh, SEC this or privacy coin that. I think that there's they have bigger fish to fry. But one thing's for sure is, as I mentioned maybe earlier in the show, there's I'm trying to. New York has something called a bit license, and basically it's the cool kids club, and Dash isn't in there yet, and that's a big goal of mine, is to figure out that quagmire this year. So if that gets solved, then the answer of to this question, which I gave a very long no, would be a hell no.
Gotcha. Next question that came up here is there going to be a strategy change once a CBDC, well, he says normalized? I mean, I think we're going to see it regardless. But any thoughts about this?
No, I don't think the strategy would change at all, to be honest. The strategy is always the same, which is get people using decentralized money, right? It's pretty simple. The CBDC thing is such a moving target, kind of.
Yeah.
It's because it's very clear conceptually what a CBDC is. It's a central bank issued digital currency that then therefore can be censored from the source and can be traced for everything. Conceptually, that's very clear. Practically, are we using CBDC? Well, maybe not me, but is everyone else using CBDC right now? Because the Federal Reserve issues the dollar, so that's a central bank currency, and it's used digitally purely for the most part. Very few people use cash these days, or I won't say very, but few. And
by percentage, yeah.
And also the Federal Reserve rolled out their FedNow payment system not too long ago, which connects with a lot of banks, and it does include, advertised amongst its features, is the ability to selectively prevent users from spending certain funds. For example, if they owe a debt, and it would basically prevent those funds from being used for anything that does not pay off that debt. For example, again, this is what they're saying. So it's arguable we're using a CBDC today, but most people would not say, oh, we're using CBDCs. So what does that look like in the future? Are they going to roll out a completely permissioned blockchain of their own and just say, hey, guess what? There's a completely different currency. It's called the digital dollar, but it's not the dollar. It's a different one. Here you go. Right. Is that what it's going to be? In which case, I think that's a little bit of a long shot. But the other thing is, are they going to just say, look, stable coins are counterfeit. They're counterfeiting the dollar. We're the only ones able to do the dollar. So as of now, all stable coins are unregistered and criminal. You cannot use them. But we're issuing FedCoin on Ethereum and Solana and all these other things. And we're issuing literally just our own stable coin, but since it's run by the Federal Reserve, that's the CBDC. Is it going to be that? Or are they going to say, you know what? This is a lot of development work that we're not very good at. We're just going to make every single stablecoin issuer register with the Federal Reserve and do what we want and have these things. And then USDC and Tether and these other ones have to go to the Federal Reserve and make sure that they have the functionality to censor or track transactions that the Fed says. I mean, of all those things, I personally think the last one is more realistic right now. Who knows? I'd either go one or the first or the last. Either we're already using a CBDC, or it's just going to end up being existing stablecoin providers have to register and be a little bit more under the thumb of the central bank.
Yeah, they become the CBDC, right?
Yeah.
FF, I see you. I know you said something about wanting a question answered before you head out. Why don't you go ahead, ask that question now, and we'll
just to your point, Joel, I do think the latter will probably happen just because there's more control for the government in that last option, where everyone has to register under them. So I see that as being an unfortunate possibility. I just a little quick tidbit before I even go into my question is I had insight to all the New York stuff because of my previous work. I won't say it here, but I used to work for a pretty major bank in New York, and I worked along crypto regulations with that bank. And I also worked with their threat intelligence, all crypto related. So I had more insight. I still have connects, so feel free to reach out if like you all are trying to get on that green list. I know what list you're talking about, so just feel free to reach out to me. I still have connections there at the bank. But in
Yeah,
regards
absolutely.
to
Just drop in the private chat, whatever context.
yeah,
I'm watching the video on YouTube right now, but I don't know about Twitter/X or anything else. But yeah, just let me know.
yeah, absolutely. But my question that goes back to the question about regulation, I think it was, and about privacy being an issue. And again, this is just my ignorance in regards to Dash and all the improvements that you guys have made over the years. But I know that something like Zcash, they have T addresses and Z addresses, and that's sort of like their way of avoiding the whole privacy concern, because an exchange can use a T address, which is public, and then whenever a Z address sends to that T address, then that Z address now exposes all their transactions essentially, and makes that Z address no longer a private address. So that's how they circumvent it. And I'm wondering if Dash does the same thing with their privacy, and maybe that's why you guys don't have that issue. It's just a question of mine on the technical side, I guess you could say.
Yeah, the privacy rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So here is just to explain what like a coin join does is I have a bunch, let's say I have like 10 Dash, and then you have 10 Dash, and you have 10 Dash, and there's a few other people. Basically, it breaks that up into denominations of like 5 1 dashes, a whole bunch of 0.1 dashes, et cetera, et cetera. Breaks them up between all of us, and then just swaps them around. So I have some of yours, you have some of mine, whatever. And so then when I do a send, it comes from a whole bunch of different addresses that no one knows whose they are really. So literally it does what's called, the more technically, is breaking the transaction graph, where the transaction graph is this to this person, this to this person, this to this person. And it's just like, well, I don't know, to this person. Amounts are still visible. Destination addresses are still visible. So like if I have a donation address and someone coin joins and sends to me, everyone knows that I received money. Everyone knows how much I received, if they know that address at least. They just don't know who amongst us sent it. And so it's a very like basic level, and it's something that's very important for consumer privacy. So you don't have like the barista see how much money you have and decide to follow you home and hit you over the head kind of thing. So the way something like Zcash works, first of all, Zcash has a lot more addresses than that. It's got T addresses, Z addresses, U, which is unified addresses, and now they have a new exchange address, which is something I'll hit on just a second. But so basically, if you deposit to a, let's just say Coinbase, and you send from a coin joined balance, what they will see is, okay, this is the account and it came from, all these places. They can see where it came from. They just can't make sense of it necessarily. And if you find a way to dox yourself, right? So you tell the exchange, look, these addresses that it came from, those are my addresses. I can prove it with my keys here. That's super easy. Or what you could do is just send to a single address of yourself, and then from that single address, go to the exchange. And it's all super easy to kind of see. It's not something, the fact that it's not been something that has affected Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has quite a few coin join solutions, of course, nowhere near as polished as Dash, or nowhere near as easy to use. And of course, you have to pay those fees, but it's the same fundamental approach to the technology. And let's not forget that the Whirlpool, which is one of the more popular coin joins in Bitcoin, has more Bitcoins in there than the entirety of the Lightning Network. So Bitcoins use a lot with this technology, and no one ever has an issue with that. The challenge with something like Zcash, the way it was, and I've talked to a lot of people in the Zcash world, as well as Firo and other projects that have had to deal with this, is so you have a transparent address. So if I send from a shielded to transparent, you can see, oh, this person received this much money. From where? No one knows. It's just not there. You look in a block explorer, it just says shielded. Just, I don't know. And apparently that's not good enough for a lot of regulators. Of course, I should say that Gemini is probably the most regulated crypto exchange in the business. They're out of New York. They run ads in New York City saying we're the most regulated exchange. And not only do they support Zcash, but they support shielded Zcash. So you can send from a shielded address to a shielded deposit address, and from my knowledge.
What?
So there's nothing. But
it doesn't seem possible, does it? But yet it is.
Yeah, because they have all the relationships with the regulators, and they're saying like, look, we do KYC on these people. It's just like a cash deposit. You know, we figure it all out. But the thing is, the sinister thing is, it's not about regulatory compliance. It's about making law enforcement happy, which should not be a legal requirement, by the way. It is not a legal requirement. It's just they want things above what they have legal authority to do. They're always looking for that stuff. And that really annoys me. I mean, we should be a nation or a bunch of nations of laws, right? We should be able to just obey the law and be good. But unfortunately, that's not the case anymore, right? What Binance requested, because again, Binance got in trouble with the authorities, and the authorities put pressure on them to do things that they would not be legally required to do beyond that. And so they said, look, we need to see origin of funds, and shielded is not a good enough origin of funds. So they created a new transaction, a new address type for Firo and Zcash, where you can only receive from a transparent address. So if I have my entire balance shielded and I'm going to deposit to Binance, rather than just sending shielded to Binance, I have to send to my own transparent address first, and then just send that to Binance. And then they can say, this money came from this address. Where it came from before then, no one knows, but no one cares at that point. And so that's kind of where it's shaken out right now. Wow. And the reason why Monero's had issues is because their setup does not have a transparent functionality. There is a view key where you can voluntarily say, you can give a single use kind of key thing to reveal your balance, but it's not like you can't tell where the money came from kind of thing. And so because of that, then they got delisted. And I don't think, again, Kraken is also a regulated exchange in the US that does support Monero and has no plans on delisting it, because again, it's illegal. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just that the law enforcement, et cetera, pressured Binance because they got them in a really bad position to then delist anything that doesn't comply with this, which is a little ugly if you ask me. But hey, I guess more business for Kraken, hopefully.
Wow. That's one way for me to head out. I mean,
well, your username is financial failure, so that might have been a good way to encapsulate the space there, right?
Yes, absolutely. And plus, a little tidbit on the name. I want it to be a little bit different than other YouTubers. A lot of people like to focus on it always goes up, coin go up, this go up, and I'm so successful, blah, blah, blah. But I think talking about your fails and learning from your mistakes is probably the best thing that you could teach people. So that's why I chose that name as financial failure. A lot of people don't see that, but that's just how I see things. But I actually have to head out to do my typical 9 to 5, unfortunately. But
no problem.
I have tons more questions, but I'm sure we'll be able to chat sometime in the future again. I want to thank you, CCM, for allowing me to ask these questions and be on this. Thank you, Joel.
It's our channel, brother.
Yeah, I mean, it is our channel, quote unquote, but you do all the setup, you do all the magic behind the scenes. You set this interview up, so I really do appreciate you for that. And then also, Joel, thank you. I know it's Valentine's Day. I don't know if you have that special somebody, but you spent an hour with us guys. And I appreciate that. And you said you do. Make sure you got the flowers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We won't keep you too much longer. You got to get things set up for tonight, obviously.
Yeah.
I still got a few questions for you, even after FF goes here.
Yeah. Later.
Yeah. No problem. Good meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Later, FF. All right. Well, and now it's down to 2.
Yeah. What are any outstanding questions or things? I mean,
I think there was one. Why haven't we seen Nigeria crypto truly transaction? You want to jump in on that?
So I don't know enough about the Nigerian situation, but I would give some guesses as, first of all, volatility in crypto is a big thing. And so if people are trying to go away from central bank kind of things, they could make a lot of money. They could not make a lot of money. And so maybe I find being in a safe position allows you to deal with flexibility a lot more. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're just not really into the volatility. Who cares if you can make some money? Because if you make some money, yeah, have a little bit more. If you lose some money, you just don't make bills and are out on the street. It's just that simple. And so there's some interesting lessons maybe could be learned because Dash had a very big presence in Venezuela over the last few years. And at one point there was, because I know I counted them myself because the entity, this was during the 2017, 2019 era. A group I was working with had a merchant listing and we actually employed some local Venezuelans to go do this. And so there were at least 2,000 merchants in the Caracas area that accepted Dash's payments during that time, which is it's pretty big. Imagine New York City with like 3,000, let's just say 3,500. I mean, that's a lot. And I have lots of evidence of like a lot of people like fighting, never happened. Yeah, tons of videos of like, hey, look, this tire shop he paid. Hey, look, this. It's not all the same person. There's tons of that stuff. And unfortunately, first of all, you have a collapsing economy where people are afraid of not being able to eat tomorrow, not at some point in the next few years if things go rough. Like, no, things are rough now. And so people are to learn, oh, I'm going to use this new coin. Why did it go up? Why did it go down? Oh, like that could be a challenge. And so what I hear people say, there is a, what I've heard people say is that Tether, USDT, as in the biggest dollar denominated stablecoin, specifically over the Tron network, because the Tron network is cheap, has had a lot of adoption in this area, and for that reason. And it makes sense that in a place like Nigeria or Ghana or wherever else in Africa that you might have a crypto presence, it would make sense that anywhere where you have a very developing market, especially for money and payments, you would have that as the number one thing, which is again why I believe that again I'm as much as I'm an idealist, I'm also a capitalist, and I think those things go very well hand in hand. But the point is, rather than say, oh, you should do something that's not inflated, rather than telling people what they should do in the free market, you give them what they want. And sometimes if someone wants something you're not prepared to give, that's a different story. But generally speaking, if you're trying to facilitate censorship resistant digital payments and people just want to use a stable coin, they just want to use a dollar denominated thing, you should have a stable coin. Like, just there you go. You get customers that way. That's just how it works. And technically, I mean, I don't like a lot of the old token standards that were, for example, Bitcoin Cash had a few different token standards, and they had Tether on those, and they just didn't take off for whatever reason. It just didn't work out well because of the way the technology worked. And I'm not a fan of the way tokens are traditionally used on something like Ethereum or Polygon or whatever else, because you have to have the token, but then you have to have the Ethereum too as gas. And I've seen Latin Americans complain on Reddit about, oh, how come I can't send my dollars on Tron? Like, they don't understand. It's like, no one told you need Tron as well. So basically, I think any coin worth its salt needs something like that. Hopefully Dash has a good token standard in this year or so that allows something for that. But again, it's not just I have a stable coin. It's got to work. It's got to have the same instant finality and security, and it's got to be able to be interoperable with stuff. then I think you can start to get places. Of course, the big problem is stablecoins, as I mentioned with the whole CBDC segment.
Right.
Who knows if they're going to all be illegal like next year, and then it's all zero. Like, I don't know.
I mean, do you
know.
really think it's going to go in that direction, though? I mean, right now, the OCC in the U.S. has already said that banks can run stablecoin nodes. So, like, why do you really see that kind of a reversal?
I don't know. I think that stablecoins, first of all, they're increasingly dominating market share. They're growing as a percentage of the crypto markets faster than Bitcoin is, for sure. Like, if you look at, so people want to use them, and I just don't understand why the government or any government, right, has let them do their thing as long as they have. I just don't get it. Like, why haven't you cracked down sooner? Because this seems like the most direct threat to the hegemony of central banking is just this.
Right.
So I think it's not like crypto where, like, I'm sure crypto will be more regulated in the future, but for the most part, just, a decentralized token that people can exchange for goods and services, and it's treated like a commodity, therefore you have capital gains, whatever. I can't see it getting very much worse than that. I think that that's kind of where it's settled. But I cannot see stable coins just being so freewheeling like they are today forever.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong,
I
but
agree.
whatever.
No, you're probably not wrong. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of regulation, using my air quotes there, to kind of rein it in to some degree. But I don't know. I feel more like when you were talking earlier about that being the potential CBDC, if you would, is more where that might be kind of.
Yeah, and because it does have, it's programmed in. Like, USDC has a whole bunch of banned addresses already.
Yes.
Like, you cannot send to these addresses. And it's, in fact, USDC is more expensive to send than, for example, DAI, which is the allegedly decentralized stablecoin on Ethereum, because it has to do the smart contract has to check if it's one of these sanctioned addresses first. So you actually pay more per transaction because of the censorship. And so the fact that these are some relatively primitive stablecoins, imagine what you could do in the future, where now you can surveil a lot more, and privacy on these kinds of chains like Ethereum is almost non-existent unless you use some.
Exactly. Yeah, that could be literally an entire, if you ask me, that could be an entire another interview right here with regard to that whole privacy or lack thereof coming down aspect here. And as much as it does interest me to have that, I don't know that I want to go down there right now. I know you may not be able to answer this, but is that something that we should be expecting from Dash, a stablecoin added in?
I don't know exactly if I have anything to do with it. Yes, I don't think it's on any actual plans, but I think it should be. And it's once you have a token like standard, once you have an ability to create things, it should be relatively easy. Now, what is still up for debate is a lot of people are into the collateralized stablecoin thing.
Yes,
kind of like the collateralized algo stable, sort of like Terra Luna style, though that of course gives it a bad name. But
yeah, I know, right?
But basically, an over collateralized stablecoin where it's like you have like 10 times the amount of capital in a pot, and it just, then you have to deal with oracles and price oracles and things like that. And I mean, I don't know how that would work. I don't know who's going to work on that. Some people are talking about it. What I would prefer is just a simple thing, which is like take the existing two big ones, Tether and USDC, and just get them to put it on your chain, and then offload all that responsibility to those centralized entities. And of course, obviously, there'll be some sorts of restriction. Like, of course, there's always like, okay, you got to work with the company. They might be like, oh, you don't have the censorship capabilities we like, or I don't know, whatever. Just, it's not, in my opinion, it's not a product I believe in, right? I don't want to live off of dollars. I try to get away from dollars, right? But it's a product that people want. And so give customers what they want. And if they want a stable coin, they probably don't care that much about financial censorship, you know?
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, I'd like to bring things around a little bit because even I have an appointment in about an hour and a half. And I really appreciate you like staying as long as you have. We're well past the hour here, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You're good right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And we will get you to your wife, but for Valentine's Day. I'd like to kind of bring it back to a lot of the, talk that we did to prep for this interview on promotions and stuff like that, was talking about your journey and how you live on cryptocurrency and so on and so forth. And I'd kind of like to do like we did in our last interview and take it kind of down the road. Now, the people who are here, I will tell you, I mean, you've got miners in here, you've got people who've been in the cryptocurrency space for, I mean, you've got some OGs who are still in live with us right now. So they know cryptocurrency. So, if you want to talk wallets, whatever avenue, UTXOs, whatever, they're going to know what you're talking about. So feel free. But like, I know when you and I talked, you were like, that the first step is to get people to start really using it in that capacity to build out the infrastructure we need to make it less clunky, I think was the word you used to describe it a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Can you speak to that? And like I said, speak to this group at that level. You know what I mean?
Like, what do we need to make it less clunky?
Well, no. Like, where can they, if these guys are looking to do that, they're looking to come and do, like I'm saying, let's go live on crypto, and here's how you start, here's how you go, and here's how you can from there.
Yeah. So depends on where you are in the world, right?
And we do have international people here, just so you know.
Yes. And I guess I'll give you two big, the where it depends on. Okay, if you want to just try, if you're a newbie, you want to try it out. If that's all you're doing, it's just an experiment, a fun thing. I would go to bitrefill.com, and they're supported in a lot of the world, and you can buy gift cards, top up your phone. And this is especially something where like a lot of places in the rest of the world have, refillable phones where you can just pay off a number and do that. So if you already have a phone bill, just enter your phone bill, pay it all, and cool, guess what? You got your phone reloaded. That's great. Other than that, buy a gift card to some local thing. And this is much stronger in the US and Western Europe, for example, than other parts, like South America to a certain extent. But, in the US, it's like tons of chains you can get stuff for. Like, obviously, as you can see here, your DoorDash, your Instacart, your whatever. Go to Walgreens, get something. Go to Chipotle. I've used it there before too. Go to Walmart, wherever else, buy a gift card, use it there, and try it out. And at that point, I mean, everyone has received, almost everyone. I mean, if you have family and friends who love you, you've received a gift card to something at some point.
Exactly.
And if you've had a gift card to something at some point, you've spent it. So now you can just get that with crypto and just experiment with using it and be like, oh, this is real for me. So like, if the shit hits the fan and all I got is crypto, I can do something with it. I can get something out of it, and I can live off of it. And that's just for like the first mental learning thing. But if you're trying to actually be serious about spending crypto, probably the bet, and you want to start transitioning to all on this, a good place to start would be, so if you go to spritz.finance/dash. Yes, we do have a code now for that, which is fun.
Oh, I did not know that. I pulled up Spritz.
Spritz.finance/dash, but that's about it. Just, you can just go to the Spritz Finance, whatever. But if you do the /dash, then
hang on.
Every time you get anyone who signs up that way, then knows that I'm the one that sent them. So that's all it does. It doesn't do, I'm not going to lie to you and say it does you any good. It does me good. To put the /dash, I think.
That's okay.
But so,
I don't mind.
US and I believe Canada and the UK for some features, but not all. But basically, you can pay all your bills. And so if you pick a smaller bill, like is it your water bill? Is it your electricity bill? Is it your internet? Whatever regular bill they send you, sign up for them. Of course, it is a KYC service, which means you have to give your ID, but so do you with your bank account, right? They already know where you live. Like if these bills are in your name at your residential address, that's about it. Like KYC's
KYC as you're going to get. Yeah.
Yeah. Might as well tell these guys too. So then you can just pay off a bill. And all you have to do is just go. I mean, if it's with the EVM type change, you connect the wallet and do all that stuff. But if it's like something like Dash or Bitcoin or whatever, you just hit pay. There's a QR code. You scan it or you copy paste in your wallet, hit pay. Boom, your bill's paid. Just pay a bill. Next month, pay the same bill and get adventurous. Ooh, I can pay more bills. Let me see if my mortgage is on there. Oh, and then there's also like a prepaid card that you could just load up anytime and that's good for the stuff like paying for Twitter, paying for, things like that, or Midjourney subscriptions, which I use, all that stuff.
Sure.
That's the easiest way to just get going in this stuff. And the other than that, once you have those options of I can pay all my bills and then I can do little gift card spends here and there, that covers almost everything. But also now that you have those, you can start talking to other people about taking crypto. Be like, hey, Mr. Farmer's Market person, what do you think? Can I buy my, kumquats or whatever you're buying over there? Can I buy those with crypto? And then they're like, well, what do I do with it? And you just tell them those two things. They're like, oh, okay. And then maybe they'll say yes. And
right.
Then you can start. Now you have a peer-to-peer economy. It's like not just I use these services, but I have my friends that I can pay, and then just pay back for things. Like you go over and you watch a sporting event that has like a pay-per-view or something like that. Right. Just see if everyone wants to pay in crypto, and then one person does the thing, and just start using it as real money.
Yep. No, I'm with you. That's like I said. Our last interview is what gave me the incentive to continue with the series that I'm slowly putting together. No, I get it. I appreciate that. Well, I'm just double checking. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions from the people who are still chatting in our chat. I guess why don't we try to pull this together? And I know that was probably the best way to pull it together. Here's the way you started out. Here's the way you go. But I don't know. You know what? Let's pull it together with this.
Mm-hmm.
How would you suggest that we go forward to try and talk to, like you said, the guy at the farmer's market or whatever? I mean, yeah, okay. Hey, can I pay with this? I understand, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like there should be a different way to approach that. Am I just off my kilter here?
Everyone has a different approach, and everyone has a different thing they want. Why do they care about this stuff? And the way a lot of businesses, if you're talking to a business, they want more customers. Of course, they want more money, but they'd rather have a recurring group of customers. And so if you're like, hey, I got 25 of my best buddies that love to spend crypto, they'll all come here if you take it. That's a good approach. But generally for the individual thing, inflation and financial censorship used to be crazy wide-eyed libertarian talking points, or stuff that Alex Jones would freak out about. But now it's everyone knows that. Everyone knows someone who had their bank account shut down or whatever, heard about a story. Everyone talks about inflation. Oh man, the price of eggs these days, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So those are good places to bring that up. And financial sovereignty, this is the way forward. The way I look at it is in my own life, and I'm sure that this can kind of resonate to other people, is I want financial sovereignty because I don't trust other people to take care of me and myself. And there's three big rungs. There's the money that you use is dictated by a party that can just, as we've seen with inflation, just decide that they want to screw it over and change the value. There's that. Then there's the money you hold. Try withdrawing 10 grand in cash from your bank. See if you can do that. Like, no, it's not your money, because they decide if they're going to give it to you. And if you get scared, like, everyone uses the money in their bank because they think they can, but as soon as they can't, then they get scared. So that's the next rung right there. And then the final rung is everything's attached to your identity. Now, if you donate to a nonprofit, like, for example, if you donate to the Canadian truckers, and then you have your bank account, see, not their bank accounts, yours as a donor, or if someone knows you donated to X political candidate, and it didn't used to be this way in the US up until 2016, but after 2016, now if someone knows you supported a certain special someone, your career could be on the line. Like, take Gina Carano, who's suing Disney now for that whole thing. So those are the three things that we need to start moving away from to really get our freedom back. And if you don't care about freedom, I don't know what to tell you, but if you do care about freedom, start doing as much of your spending as you can that doesn't have attachment to your identity. And just, it's like cash, digital cash, right? As much as you can, do that. And then try to keep as much of your money, as in, once you learn how to self-custody, once you learn how to not lose it, but keep as much of it in your control, only your control. It's fine if you have a bank account, have a few grand in there, but like, your life savings is in someone else's hands. You just trust to always be a good actor.
Good steward.
That is scary. So get rid of that. And then finally, try not to be entirely dependent on the denomination of US dollars, of a thing that the government can say, you know what, we're sunsetting this currency, we're going to create a new one. All that stuff is worth zero now. That can happen. Get to something where that can't happen. And it's just those things. It doesn't have to be a radical thing. It's a principle thing, right? You move more of your life into the free zone out of the not free zone. And that's about as simple as it is.
And you know what, you bring up a good point about you put it as sunsetting the currency, and people don't believe that can even happen here in the United States. And every time someone says that to me, when I have these kind of conversations, I point out to India. It happened there. Point to Greece. Happened there. You know, it's not like it can't happen. You know, they close their doors. You ain't getting your money. And if you're lucky enough that they reopen their doors, you're going to get whatever they give you, and you're going to be happy and like it. Yeah. I mean,
my grandma had old pesos. That was her currency. She used Mexican pesos. And after she passed away and my parents were cleaning out her house to sell it, they had a lot of these old coins. I'm like, Mom, what are these? It's like, well, they used to be money, but they're not anymore because that peso died. It's just gone. There's the new peso, which is only what people use these days. Right. And it's so as soon as I knew what money was, like within a couple of years, I knew that a money could just die because it has, in my family's immediate life. It just, that one doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I was in Romania in 2005 when they're transitioning from the old lei currency to the new lei, and the old one is 100,000, and they just chopped off 5 of those zeros, and then there you go, down to 1. And people pretend like this doesn't happen in the U.S. because in our lifetime it's still been the same U.S. dollar, and we've always known old people saying, "Oh, I remember when back in my day a nickel would get you." Okay, sure, but how about I remember in 2020 when I could get $100 would get me this much in groceries. That wasn't that long ago. Like there's kids in high school who are still in high school that have seen their prices change significantly.
Of course.
Like this is not a old timer type thing. Back in no, this is a big thing this is real now. It's not US is in Banana Republic territory right now. It's not, it's not like this happened once and it's not going to happen again. It's going to keep happening and until we learn our lesson. And the lesson is live free or die, right? You got to start living free now before it's too late.
Yeah. Learn to do it. I mean, and that was, again, that's the thing to me. Learn before you need to know, and practice, practice makes perfect, like anything else.
Well, practice.
Well, and you just gave them the blueprint for the practice, and not for nothing. If that blueprint wasn't good enough for you, go back to the interview we did a month or so ago, and on my channel, and you can find pretty much the same blueprint right there. So
yeah, of course. Feel free to hit me up at any time too.
Right. Listen, I am going to slowly wrap this up here. I really appreciate you being here. I truly do. I'm sorry that we had a family emergency and FF had to bail here. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Like I'm going to be mad at someone for having an emergency. Come
on.
Family
first, always. I agree. But just kind of the way things work out. But you've been gracious to be here this amount of time. I mean, we're pushing the 2-hour mark here almost. So I really appreciate it. And I thank you for being here. And like I said, hopefully we can get you back, because I know FF had some other questions. I know that Crypto Jar had a bunch of questions put aside, and I still had questions that if we had gone down those roads, I would be late for my next appointment. So
of course,
hopefully we can have you back soon and get you to answer some of these. Hey, anything you want to throw out? Last wrap up before we close up the live?
Yeah, not much. Just follow me on X, Twitter at the Desert Links, as you can see on the screen there. Just that's the same thing. And also just try out Spritz. It's Spritz with a Z, right? Spritz.finance/dash. Just go there, try it out. Yeah, I'm gonna just drop that in the live chat here. See.
Yep. And FF's like, hey, sorry, I'm in a meeting.
Yeah, it's okay. Hey, he's still watching.
You got to pay the bills there, FF. It is what it is. We get it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I am incredibly lucky to be able to pay the bills by doing what I would be doing if I didn't have any bills to pay. So
there you go.
Not everyone. I understand some people have to do slightly divergent things, but it's fine.
Yes. All right. Well, I and just to the point where you were putting your Twitter handle and stuff, guys, everybody, in the description of this live stream on all the channels, okay, all the channels that is being broadcast right now, the link to all Joel's contact information is there. YouTube channels, Twitter, Dash, you name it. It's in there. So go ahead and follow him wherever you want. Reach out to him wherever you want. I will say this about this gentleman: he is more than willing to talk to anybody, and I mean, he's answered questions to me offline that had absolutely nothing to do with this. So I appreciate his graciousness, and he will be equally as gracious with you. I promise. So
absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're going to wrap it. And like I said, we'll have you back. We'll coordinate something. And thank you again for your time and imparting the knowledge you have on us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Again, anytime, anywhere, you know me.
I do. And he's right about that. He really does. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the activity and questions in the chat. Again, my channel tomorrow, dropping the interview I did with Jason from the P2E Gaming, and you'll see me live Friday night, Crypto on the Rocks. All right, take care, everybody.
Yep, bye-bye.